Ilhan Omar never saw this coming.
The nightmare billion-dollar fraud scandal rolls on in Minnesota. House Oversight Republicans are accusing Walson Ellison of looking the other way to avoid political problems with Minnesota's influential Somali community.
As the massive Minnesota fraud scandal unfolded, the internet started digging, which led to multiple clips of Ilhan's old speeches resurfacing. And they're not doing her any favors.
Intii aniga aan Congress joogo, wadanka Soomaaliya biyaheeda dad kaleeta iyo badeeda dad kale ma qaadanayaan.
And today, we're covering it all. So let's jump right into it.
The whistleblowers that I've spoken to are saying that the governor knew, and the governor and lieutenant governor and even Chris Schmitter, who was his chief of staff, came to them as staff and scolded them for pointing out fraud.
Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar told CNN this week she believes the fraud spiraled out of control because COVID programs were rolled out without sufficient guardrails. It's also worth noting the owner of the restaurant where Omar held her 2018 victory party is among those from the Somali community who have been convicted of profiting from the schemes. Harris?
Look, I don't know. I know this would be public, but I don't know how hard they'd make us work as journalists. But I want a FOIA for those 300-plus arrests that AG Ellison says that he made. I want to know the dates that those arrests, did they coincide with being caught or this coming to light? I want to know who they picked up in the scheme when you just heard a head of small business saying, Kelly Loeffler, there are more people to go out and get. I mean, this is unbelievable.
This goes without saying, but Ilhan Omar hasn't been accused of any wrongdoing so far. That said, if you look into her proximity to the people who were involved in the fraud, it paints a pretty damning picture. For example, there are videos of her promoting one of the restaurants tied to Feeding Our Future, which also happens to be the same place where she held her 2018 congressional victory party. What makes it even more interesting is that when the restaurant's owner went on trial, there were objections raised to the prospect of jurors seeing those clips and pictures. This led to people on the internet digging further, and that's when older speeches of Ilhan began resurfacing. They're not in English though, so just focus on the translated captions.
Qofka Soomaaliga ah waa qof cadow sare ah. Dadkaasoo kaleetana magaaladayna nool dhex nool yihiin. Waan aragnaa anagoo dhan. Qaar waxaa jiro aan dhahno qofkan wuu iska hadlaa micno ma leh. Kanina adeerkay waaye biliis waxa dhihin waxa laga yaabaa ka fishaabiyaalkeen waa taqaaniin dadkan ka hadlaayo Starbucks ka la fadhiistiin maybe masaajidka marmar inuu imaadaan laga yaabaa xafladaha isla tagtiin waa taqaaniin dadkan ka hadlaa inuu guriga la deganahay waa aragtiin dadkaas iska qabta meel ma gaareen anaga Soomaali hadii aan nahay inta dadkaas ay nagu dhex jiraan oo aanan dhehaynin qofkaanaytii hana dhaafo dadka aan difaacna annaga kuwa annaga rabo maalin Ilaahay keeno in xabsina la geliyo idinka idin difaacoyna wadankaana difaacoyna sharci aan suubinoyna maanta oo dhan kuma soo taagnaan karno videogaanaytii aniga hadalkaan ma dhihin maanta oo dhan meel nala taagnaan karno taas idinka idin taala inaadan soo dhawaysanin dadkaas maalin Ilaahay keeno ka shaqeynaayo sida Soomaalida wadankan ku nool ay wax ku noqoneen.
This was at one of Omar Fateh's campaign events, where Ilhan was calling out other Somali Americans for not falling in line with her agenda. When you see speeches like these, it perfectly explains the argument that elected officials in Minnesota, particularly those who were a part of the state's Democratic-led administration, were reluctant to take more assertive action in response to allegations in the Somali community, fearing backlash from a key voting bloc. That's BS. Even the New York Times wrote about it in their detailed piece on the Minnesota fraud scandal. If you thought that's bad enough, wait until you hear her speeches where Ilhan openly pledges allegiance to Somalia. But before we play that, we have a quick word from today's sponsor. Recently, the Department of Energy committed $2.7 billion to rebuild domestic uranium enrichment. Now, that's not routine spending. It's a declaration of intent. America needs uranium, and it needs it now. Just look at the imbalance. The US consumes over 50 million pounds of it each year. but produces less than 1 million domestically. That leaves us 98% dependent on foreign suppliers. With Russia dominating enrichment capacity and escalating tensions in Iran, the risk is real. This is where Kirkstone Metals comes in. Trading as KSM in Canada and KSMCF in the US, the team brings deep experience in uranium and junior mining, with a history of turning exploration into value. The question is simple: can they deliver again? Kirkstone holds 2 fully owned uranium projects in the Athabasca Basin, one of the richest uranium regions in the world. At their flagship Key Lake project, early drilling has already hit high-grade uranium near surface, but the team believes the real prize lies deep underground. This region has produced over 20% of global uranium discoveries, yet Kirkstone holds a market cap below 12 million. That gap becomes even more interesting when you factor in strong policy support and rising uranium prices, with some forecasts projecting that it could exceed $100 per pound by 2026 as demand outpaces supply. All of this makes Kirkstone strategically positioned to capitalize on the reshoring mandate. So, if you want to learn more about their story, check the link in the description below. A special thanks to Kirkstone Metals for making today's video possible.
jawaabteedu waxay ahayd dawladda Mareykanka waxay ka qabanaysaa wixii annaga aan dhahno dawladda Mareykanka qabo. Waa kalsoonidaas inaan isku qabno annaga Soomaali haddii aan nahay. Wadankan annaga ku nool wadankan wadankii aan annaga tax ka dhiibno waaye waa wadankii gabar idinka dhalatayne ee Congress-ka fadhiso intii aniga aan Congress joogo wadanka Soomaaliya biyaheeda dad kaleeta iyo badeeda dad kale ma qaadanayaan wadanka Mareykankana kuma taageerayo dad kaleeta in annaga ayna dhacaan madaxweynaha Soomaaliya madaxweyne Xasan Sheikh Maxamuud inaan maanta ku soo dhaweyno Minneapolis aniga iyo madaxweynaha special relationship aan qabnaa aniga adeeraan ugu wacaa asigana gabarteeyu idhahaa aad iyo aad aan ugu faraxsanahay in maanta madaxweynaheena aad tahay.
Listen, referring to the leader of another state, one that most people couldn't even locate on a map as our president, is questionable to say the least. She's a sitting member of Congress, serving on key committees like the House Budget Committee. So where should her priorities lie? With American interests or those of Somalia? Now, it may sound blunt, but these are conversations that need to happen and across the board. Simply put, elected officials are expected to represent the people who put them in office, not some countries that are thousands of miles away. And here's a bigger problem, because there are other public figures who've made pretty similar remarks, which only adds another layer to this debate.
This is the first time in this country we see a Somali American who is now the mayor of a U.S. city, and here she is, that barrier-breaking woman herself, here on GMA3, Mayor Decca Delac. Madam Mayor, it is such a pleasure to be able to call you that. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. How are you, TJ? And thank you so much for having me.
Your mama's back home still, right? You still have family back home. What did they say?
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. People are really bright. They have so much pride and so much, you know, they are grateful, they are happy, and they are asking what can we do back home in Somalia, how we can change policies, how can the politics in Somalia can be, you know, resonate what we have here in the United States, the democracy that we have. How can you help us, you know, be a better country and build back what we used to have back in long time ago. So hopefully we will be able to help our country, our former country, Somalia, and show what we can do here can be also built into other countries that we left a long time ago.
This brings up a broader question about assimilation. Some may argue that Ilhan and Decca are first-generation immigrants, but even when compared to other communities, we've seen higher levels of integration. Yet it's a topic many on the Democratic side avoid entirely. The reason's pretty clear. The moment it's raised, the far left will quickly label it as offensive or divisive, which shuts the conversation down before it even starts. But that's a bigger issue. Whether people agree or disagree, avoiding the discussion altogether doesn't help. It just reflects where our current political climate is. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, you heard it here at the Dais.